is already described, but the 40 slides were already discussed, but I will quickly go through all those slides which were completed, and then I will proceed towards the next slides, which is the part of this lecture. The renal physiology or the renal system or urinary system. Uh, the renal physiology or the urinary system that is for the uh, water balance and disposal of nitrogen waste from the body. So uh, this this is the this is the one of the this is the one of the method by which the homeostasis is being performed by the body. The internal environment is controlled or maintained by the renal physiology or by the urinary system. So the homeostasis, the urinary system maintains the homeostasis in several ways. Removal of urea, nitrogenous waste from the bloodstream, and then it controls the water and salt balance in the bloodstream, involved in the blood pressure regulation as well. So the blood pressure is also regulated by the urinary system or by the renal physiology. The renin is an enzyme released by the kidneys in a response to drop in blood pressure. The renin catalyzes the production of angiotensin, a hormone that causes the arterioles to constrict and raising the blood pressure. This also reduces the rate of a blood filtration, causes a water retention in the urinary system. So the water is recirculated after a reabsorption from distal tubules. A second response to low blood pressure is the release of erythropoietin, another hormone. That erythropoietin travels to the bone marrow and stimulates the production of a new blood cells. This is also one of the methods to control the blood pressure. So the urea removal is a restroom. So the amino acid metabolism. Amino acids are the building blocks of a protein. If not needed for a building protein, then can be metabolized for energy, are broken apart and the carbon chains used to make fat. So the metabolism requires a removal of a amino units, mostly the ammonia, which is very toxic and highly water soluble. So the liver turns ammonia into the urea, which is less toxic and less soluble. So the ammonia mixes with the carbon dioxide and turn into a urea that is given into the blood, and then the urea is traveled through blood and filtered through kidneys, then excreted through a urinary system. So the ammonia toxicity is being reduced by metabolism and as well as by the excretion of ammonia in the form of a urea uh, through kidneys. The urinary system, having a main structures of the urinary system, there are two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder, and a urethra. So this is the ureters are connected with the uh, kidneys, and then it is giving the transport of a urine from a kidneys to the urinary bladder, where the urine is being accumulated, and then the urethra at the time of requirement, it releases the urine and then expel the urine from the urinary system, urinary tract. So the functions of the kidney: the filter blood plasma, separate the waste, then returns usable material to the blood, and eliminate the waste from the body. The toxic nitrogenous waste like ammonia, urea, uric acid, creatine, and creatinine is being removed by the kidneys and by the urinary system. So mostly if it retains for a longer time, then it is causing a diarrhea, vomition, cardiac arrhythmia, convulsion, coma, and death in the form of a kidney failure or a liver failure. So the second function of the kidneys is to regulate the blood volume and osmolarity. As I have already told you that the blood pressure is also controlled by the regulation and filtration of the blood, and then the regulation of the volume, blood volume is also maintained by the urinary system or by the filtration of the kidneys. So the function of the kidneys, that is to produce the hormones like renin, erythropoietin, and calcitriol. So these hormones are being produced by the kidneys, which are helping in the regulating of the homeostasis. They regulate the acid-base balance of the body fluids by uh, reabsorbing the carbohydrates and the glucose, so that the acid base balance is being regulated by the kidneys. So the buffering system is also maintained by the uh, function of the kidneys. So the detoxification is takes place by the kidneys, that the superoxides are absorbed, the free radicals are being excreted, the drugs like antibiotics or other drugs which is toxic as well, they are being also excreted through the kidneys after a filtration and reabsorption through a distal tubules, that is being excreted through the urinary tract. The anatomy of the kidneys, that the outer layer, which is the uh, outer layer of the kidney is known as the cardex, whereas the inner layer of the kidney is known as the medulla. There, in the medulla, there is a renal pyramids. Then the connecting the minor calyx, and then the minor calyx are connected with the major calyx, and major calyx is forming a pelvis. So the pelvis is also connected with the ureter, which carries the urine from the kidneys to transport it towards the urinary bladder. So the renal pelvis having a helix and a renal papilla, and then the attached with the ureter. The kidneys has the main structures of the mammalian kidney. That's the renal cortex, medulla, renal pelvis, and the nephrons. Nephron is the basic units which forms the kidneys and which helps in the filtration of the urine, and as well as it is also uh, transporting and secreting the uh, the hormones and enzymes. Glomerulus and proximal tubules, loop of Henle and distal tubules is the anatomy of the nephrons. In the anatomy of the nephron, there is the arterioles, efferent arterioles, and afferent arterioles, which is supplying the blood, circulating the blood through a nephron, and the Bowman's capsule or a glomerulus is a glomerulus is one of the area where the filtration takes place, and then the urine is passes through a uh, proximal tubules, that is absorbing the nutrients as well as water, and then it is transported to the loop of Henle, where the sodium is reabsorbed, and as well as the water is reabsorbed, and then the distal tubule is again reabsorbing the water, and the secretions being absorbed, or even in the distal tubes, they are being administered into the distal tubules, so that it may be excreted through a distal tubules, and the collecting duct is collecting a urea and then transporting it towards the pelvis, and the pelvis is transporting to the ureters, and ureters carries the urine to the urinary bladder, and then the urinary bladder expels through a urethra the urine of the body. This is the only place in the system where the blood is actually filtered. Blood pressure is used to push plasma through a capillary walls and into the Bowman's capsule. So the Bowman's capsule is the only area where the filtration takes place, and then the reabsorption takes place in the proximal tubules, and then the loop of Henle and the distal tubules uh, also absorbs uh, the secretions, and as well as it is giving a reabsorption of water uh, to recirculate the water and nutrients into the blood. So the proximal tubules, the nutrients and salts and vitamins are moved out of the tubules through active transport, and water follows the nutrients by osmosis. The loop of Henle, tissue around the loop of Henle, is salty from active transport and diffusion of a sodium chloride takes place. The salty conditions allow the waters to diffuse out of the loop. Whereas the distal tubules uh, that is that is performing a bioactive transport to move more nutrients out of the concentrated urine, and some ions, drugs, and toxins are actively pumped into the tubules to excrete the toxins, the drugs, and as well as the few of the ions may be uh, pumped into the distal tubules so that it may be excreted. The collective duct, more water leaves the tube by osmosis, since the tube is surrounded by a salty tissue. Some urea leaves by the diffusion and may be cycled through the system. So this is the nephron, which is showing the filtration takes place in the Bowen's capsule, and then the reabsorption of the nutrients takes place from the proximal tubule, and then the loop of Henle is one of the area where the reabsorptions also takes place and the water expels out, and sodium is also came out from the loop of Henle. Then the secretions like antibiotics, like toxins, are they are pumped into the distal tubules to excrete the toxins, the antibiotics, the drugs, and as well as the waste products into the distal tubules, and then it is excreted through a distal tubules through a common duct, collecting duct, and where the more reabsorption of the water is takes place, and sodium is also reabsorbed, where that is maintaining the blood pressure, that is maintaining the blood volume, and also that is recirculating the salts and as well as the water into the blood. The water balance is one of the function of the kidneys to maintain the water in the body. The antidiuretic hormone, also called a vasopressin, is a part of the negative feedback mechanism that regulates the water balance. So antidiuretic hormone increases the permeability of the distal tubule, allows the greater water recovery. So mostly the water is recovered or reabsorbed from a distal tubules and then recirculated in the body. So it maintaining the water volume or water balance in the body by the feedback mechanism. So the heat causes the water loss, and dehydration also causes the water loss. There is giving receptors in the hypothalamus detect the low water contents of the blood and signal the posterior pituitary gland. So by signaling a posterior pituitary gland, the antidiuretic hormone is released into the blood stream, where the antidiuretic hormone increases the permeability of the distal tubules and the collective duct, allowing more water to be reabsorbed into the blood stream. So there is a less loss of a water through a urinary system. It is being reabsorbed and then recirculated, circulated in the blood stream. So the water is retained in the body, and concentrated urine is produced. So the kidneys lie along the posterior abdominal wall. and the medial surface of the kidney in a concave with a helium carrying a renal nerves and blood vessels. The renal parenchyma is divided into an outer cortex and an inner medulla having the helium and then the renal sinus and as well as the pelvis, which is also uh, attached with the ureterus, which carries the urine from kidneys to the urinary bladder. The renal column in between the renal pyramids, renal papilla, and the ureterus, the extension of the cortex, the renal column projects towards the sinus and dividing the medulla into a 6 to 10 renal pyramids. Each pyramid is conical with the blunt point called the papilla facing the sinus. The nephron, the uh, the papilla is nested into the cup called a minor calyx, which collects its urine. Two or three minor calyces merge to form a major calyx. The major calyces merge to form the renal pelvis. The nephron, the kidney contains 1.2 million nephrons, which are the functional units of the kidney. A nephron consists of blood vessels, afferent arterioles, glomerulus, efferent arterioles, and renal tubules, the proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and distal convoluted tubule. So the nephron is made up of the basic unit of the kidney. The kidney, both the kidneys are made up of nephrons, and it is the nephron body is consist of a glomerulus, efferent arterioles, afferent arterioles, and then the proximal convoluted tubules and the distal convoluted tubule and loop of Henle. These are the basic structures of a nephron. The nephron having a basic that is the basic unit of the kidney, and that is containing the Bowens capsule, the proximal uh, tubule, the loop of Henle, and the distal tubule. Most components of the nephron are within the cortex. The nephron are connected to a renal artery or a vein and a ureterus. The glomerulus is enclosed into a two-layered glomerular Bowman's capsule. So the proximal tubule is attached with the Bowman's capsule. The urine formation takes place in the four steps. That is a glomerular filtration that creates the plasma-like filtrate of the blood, and the tubular reabsorption removes the useful solutes from the filtrate and returns them to the blood. The tubular secretion that removes the additional waste from the blood and adds them to the filtrate. So concentration removes the water from the urine and concentrated waste from the urinary system. The blood plasma, that's a renal capsule that filters the blood, and then the glomerular filtration takes place. Then the renal tubules reabsorbs the fluid, and the tubular fluids are pre-tubular capillaries reabsorb those all the nutrients and vitamins which are vital and necessary for the body. They are being reabsorbed from that fluid, and then the remaining fluid which is coming to distal tubules, that the water reabsorbed and the secretions are being pumped into the distal tubules to excrete the concentrated urine through a urinary bladder and then urethra. So the glomerular filtration takes place in the glomerular area, where the filtration of a membrane from the plasma to the capsular space fluid passes through three barriers. One is the foot processes, the fenestrated epithelium, the basement membrane. The filtration of a membrane, almost any molecule smaller than a 3 nanometers can pass freely through the filtration membrane into the capsular space. These include the water, electrolytes, glucose, amino acids, lipids, vitamins, and nitrogen. Nitrogenous waste can pass through the Bowman's capsule's barriers, and then they are being filtered into the urine. The kidneys infection and trauma commonly damage the filtration membrane and allows the plasma protein and blood cells to pass through the barriers. So therefore, whenever there is a during a urine analysis, if you found a plasma protein or a blood, it is one of the indication that the kidneys are infected with the microorganisms. So the blood cells and the plasma proteins do not normally cross the barrier of the Bowman's capsule. The three layers of the Bowman's capsules cannot be passed by the blood cells because they are larger in size. So the 3 nanometer particles can pass through that barriers only. Therefore, when there is a damage to the filtration barriers or filtration membranes, then the blood cells or a plasma protein can pass through the Bowman's capsule, and then you can find the blood cells in the urine. The kidneys lie at the thoracic 12, and the kidneys are a 2 in the number. Then the ureters are connected with the pelvis, and they are transporting the urine from kidneys to the urinary bladder, where the urinary bladder collects the urine, and then the urethra expel it out when it is required. The filtration pressure, the glomerular filtration, follows the same principles that governs the filtration in the other capillaries. The capillary blood pressure is a 60 mmHg, whereas the colloid osmotic pressure is minus 32 mmHg, and the capillary pressure is minus 18 mmHg. If the minus blood pressure may be deducted from a 60, then the remaining net filtration pressure will be a 10 mmHg in the distal tube. The glomerular filtration is the amount of a filtrate formed per minute by the two kidney combined. For the average adult male, glomerular filtration rate is about 125 ml per minute. This amount to a rate of 180 liters per day. An average of 99% of the filtrate is reabsorbed, so that 1 to 2 liters of a urine per day is excreted in the human being. Glomerular filtration rate must be precisely controlled. If the glomerular filtration rate is too high, it increases the urine output, and the threat of the dehydration and electrolyte depletion can be observed. If the glomerular filtration is too low, insufficient excretion of the waste products may be observed, and the only way to adjust the glomerular filtration from movement to a movement is to change the glomerular blood pressure. Renal autoregulation, the ability of the kidneys to maintain a relatively stable glomerular filtration in spite of the changes 75 to 175 mmHg in the arterial blood pressure. So the capillary blood pressure is a 60 mmHg, and the colloid osmotic pressure is 32 minus 32 mmHg, and the capillary pressure is minus 18 mmHg, which is giving a net filtration pressure that's a 10 mmHg. That has to be maintained so that the glomerular filtration rate may be maintained normally. The nephron has two ways to prevent the drastic changes in the glomerular filtration when the blood pressure rises. The construction of afferent arterioles to reduce the blood flow in the glomerulus area, the dilation of the efferent arterioles to allow the blood to flow out more easily. So these changes may have to reduce and maintain the blood pressure. So the changes in opposite direction, if the blood pressure falls, then the dilation of the afferent arterioles takes place, and the construction of the efferent arterioles takes place when there is a the fall in the blood pressure. When there is an increase, then the afferent arterioles are constructed and the dilation of the efferent arterioles takes place. That is also maintaining the required blood pressure in the Bowman's capsule. The mechanism of renal autoregulation is myogenic response and the tubuloglomerular feedback. These are the two responses which maintains the renal mechanism. The myogenic response is to maintain the blood pressure of the arterioles and efferent arterioles and afferent arterioles, and then it is maintaining the blood pressure, net blood pressure of a 10 mmHg in the for the filtration, so that the glomerular filtration takes place in the normal volume. So tubular glomerular feedback is that the mesangial cells, the distal tubules, the juxtaglomerular cells, and efferent arterioles and macula dens. The glomerular filtration, the tubular reabsorption, tubular secretions, and concentrating urine by a collecting duct are the main mechanisms which regulates the blood pressure and as well as regulates the blood volume, and it is regulating the glomerular filtration. The about 99% of the water and other useful small molecules in the filtrates are normally reabsorbed back into the plasma by renal tubules. The reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubules takes place. The proximal convoluted tubules is formed by one layer of epithelial cells with long apical microvilli. The proximal convoluted tubules reabsorb about 65% of the glomerular filtrates and returns it to the blood. Whereas the routes of a proximal tubular reabsorption, the transcellular route and a paracellular route, the proximal convoluted tubules, that is a peritubular reabsorption takes place over this area, and the mechanism of the proximal tubular reabsorption is to solvent drag, active transport of a sodium, secondary active transport of a glucose, amino acids, and other nutrients, secondary water reabsorption via osmosis, secondary ion reabsorption via electrostatic attraction, and endocytosis of large solutes. So this is the mechanism which takes place for the reabsorption of the in the proximal tubular area. The osmosis, the water moves from a compartment of a low osmolarity to the compartment of a high osmolarity. So the low osmolarity, the water concentration goes to the high osmolarity. So the water goes to where the concentration is higher, that moves the water towards the high concentration, from a high concentration to a low concentration. So the solvent drags the driven by the high colloid osmotic pressure in the peritubular capillary, the water reabsorbed by osmosis and carries all other solutes along. Both routes are involved. So the active transport of a sodium, the sodium pumps in the basolateral membranes transport the sodium out of the cells against its concentration gradients using ATPs. There are also pumps for other ions like calcium, and the secondary active transport of a glucose, amino acids, and other nutrients. The various contra supporters can carry both sodium and the other solids. Various co-transporters can carry both sodium and other solids. For example, the sodium-dependent glucose transporters can carry both sodium and a glucose. Secondary active transport of a glucose, amino acids, and other nutrients. The amino acids, many other nutrients are reabsorbed by their specific co-transporters with the sodium and the potassium, the glucose may have to carry down, and the amino acids may have to go through a lumen towards the capillaries. The secondary water reabsorption via osmosis, the sodium reabsorption makes the both intracellular and extracellular fluids hypertonic to the tubular fluids. So water follows the sodium into the peritubular capillaries. So the sodium in the water that goes from a tubular lumen, and then the that goes to a proximal convoluted tubule cells, and then the sodium goes into the capillaries. The water and the sodium goes into the capillaries by a reabsorption method. The secondary ion reabsorption via electrostatics attraction, the negative ions tends to follow the positive sodium ions by electrostatic attraction. So the negative and positive attracts to each other, therefore they are moving from a tubular lumen towards proximal convoluted tubular cells, and then it is being transported to a capillary. So this is being taken place by electrostatic attraction. The negative and the positive attracts to each other. The endocytosis of a large solutes, the glomerular filtrates a small amount of a protein from the blood, and the proximal convoluted tubules reclaims it by endocytosis. So the hydrolyzes it to amino acid and releases these to the extracellular fluids by facilitated diffusion method. The transport of a maximum transport, there is a limit of the amount, a limit to the amount of a solutes that the renal tubules can reabsorb, because there are a limited number of transport proteins in the plasma membrane. If all the transporters are occupied as solutes, molecules pass through, some solutes will remain in the tubular fluids and appears in the urine. So, for example, the glucose. In the diabetic patients, the glucose maybe if they are more than 180 milliliters per day, then it may have to be observed that the glucose may be observed in the urine. So the glucose, when they are, that is more in a concentration, the transporters are lesser in a number, so therefore the glucose may have to be excreted into the uh, blood. The high glucose in the blood, high glucose in the filtrates, and exceed the glucose in the concentration in the urine. The reabsorption in the nephron leaves takes place by the primary purpose is to establish the high extracellular osmotic concentration. The thick ascending limb reabsorbs the solutes but is impermeable to water. Thus, the tubular fluid becomes a very diluted, while the extracellular fluids becomes very concentrated with the solids. The high osmolarity enables the collecting duct to concentrate the urine lateral. The reabsorption in the distal convoluted tubules takes place. The fluid arriving in the distal convoluted tubules still contains about 20% of the water and 10% of the salts of the glomerular filtrates. The distinguished feature of these parts of the renal tubule is that they are subject to a hormonal control. Aldosterone secreted from the adrenal gland in a response to sodium and potassium. If the sodium is decreased and the potassium is increased in the blood, to increase the sodium absorption and the secretion in the secretion in the ducts and the cortical portion of the collecting duct. So it helps to maintain the blood volume and the pressure of the blood in the by this method. So the arterial natriuretic factors secreted by the arterial myocardium in response to a high blood pressure. It inhibits the sodium and water reabsorption, increases the output of both in the urine, and thus reduces the blood volume and pressure. So the tubular secretion, the tubular secretions are renal tubules extract the chemicals from the blood and secretes them into the tubular fluid. Serves the purpose of a waste removal and acid balance. So the hydrogen ions, they are being reabsorbed by the proximal convoluted tubule cells, and then it is allowed into the tubular lumen so that it may be uh, excreted, and the hydrogen ions are excreted in a so that the acid-base balance may be maintained. The concentrating urine by a collecting duct. The collecting duct begins in the cortex, where it receives the tubular fluids from a numerous nephrons, and the collecting duct reabsorbs the water. The driving force, the high osmolarity of extracellular fluids generated by a sodium chloride and urea, provides the driving force for a water reabsorption. So regulation, the medullary portion uh, of the convoluted distal duct, the is not permeable to a sodium chloride and permeable to the water, and depending on the antidiuretic hormone. The control of a urine concentration depends on the body state of a hydration. In a state of a full hydration, antidiuretic hormone is not secreted, and the convoluted duct permeability to uh, water is low, and leaving the water to the excreted. In the state of a dehydration, antidiuretic hormone is secreted. The convoluted distal duct having a permeability to water increases. With the increased reabsorption of the water by osmosis, the urine becomes more concentrated. No more reabsorption after tubular fluid leaving the convoluted duct, so that the reabsorption takes place in the uh, medulla, and the water is reabsorbed, and then there is no more reabsorption takes place. When the urine is formed, it has to be excreted, and the urine properties will be that the composition and the properties of the urine is the fresh urine is clear, containing no blood cells and a little proteins. If cloudy, it could indicate the presence of a bacteria, semen, blood, and menstrual fluids. The blood plasma is containing a urea that is a 4.8 grams, whereas the urine contains a urea that's 25 grams. The uric acid is containing the blood plasma is 0.15 grams, whereas the urine is rich in a uric acid that is a 0.8 grams. The creatinine is 0.03, whereas the urine is containing a creatinine that is 1.6 grams. Potassium in the plasma, blood plasma, there is only a 0.5 grams, whereas the urine is rich in the potassium that is 2 grams uh, per ml per day. So the total amount of the blood plasma, that is chloride, is a 10.7 grams, where the urine amount per day is 6.3 grams. The sodium is 9.7 grams, whereas the urine amount per day is 4.6 grams. Protein is present in the blood plasma, total blood plasma, that's 200 grams, whereas it is excreted 0.1 grams. The bicarbonate are present in the blood plasma, that's 4.6 grams, where the urine does not contain the bicarbonates because it is totally reabsorbed, and the urine is containing 0 grams in the urine of per day. The glucose is a 3 grams in a total amount in the blood plasma, where it is containing 0 grams in the urine of uh, full day. So the urine volume, an average adult produces 1 to 2 liters of urine per day in a human, and excessive urine output is called a polyuria. A scanty urine output is called oliguria, and output of less than 400 ml per day is insufficient to excrete the toxic waste from the body. The diabetes, in the chronic polyuria resulting from a various metabolic disorders, including a diabetes mellitus, diabetes insipidus. The diabetes mellitus is caused by either a deficiency of insulin 1, type 1, or a deficiency of insulin receptors type 2. The diabetes mellitus features high glucose in the blood, there is a hyperglycemia. So the pancreatic beta cells may not produce the insulin, so the glucose and glycogen and insulin receptors may not be present, that may have to lead towards diabetes mellitus. If there is a diabetes mellitus, then when the glucose in the tubular fluid exceed the transport of a maximum 180 mg per 100 ml, it appears in the urine glycosuria because the transporters are not available more than 180 mg per ml. Therefore, the remaining glucose will be excreted through the duct. So the high glucose in the blood plasma, the filtration of a 180 mg will take place per 100 ml will take place through a Bowman's capsules. The remaining high glucose will be infiltrated, and the retain of a water by osmosis. Then the high urine volume will be excreted. The glucose in the tubular fluids hinders the water reabsorption by osmosis and causes the polyuria. So this glucose is not allowing the permeability or the osmotic osmosis of the water through from a distal uh, tubules. Therefore, the water retention takes place in the diabetic patients, and they are not only excreting the glucose but also they are excreting high volume of the urine, and the diabetic patients has a more polyuria when uh, they are having a diabetic mellitus. Diabetic insipidus is caused by the inadequate antidiuretic hormone secretion. Due to the shortage of a antidiuretic hormone, water reabsorption in the distal tubules is not is compromised and leading to a polyuria. So the polyuria in the diabetic insipidus is being observed because of the antidiuretic hormone. The posterior pituitary gland is not releasing the antidiuretic hormone, therefore it is causing the polyuria. Diuresis, the reference to excretion of a large amount of the urine. Natriuresis refers to the enhanced urinary excretion of a sodium. The diuretics are chemicals that increase the urine volume. They are used for treating the hypertension and congestive heart failure because they reduce the overall fluid volume. The diuretics, like we are using a Lasix, they that is causing a high volume of the to be excreted from the animal, and that is reducing the blood pressure and also hypertension in the human being as well as in the animals. So work by either increasing a glomerular filtration or reducing a tubular reabsorption. The caffeine falls into the former category, alcohol into the later category. So the caffeine is increasing the glomerular filtration, whereas the alcohol is reducing the reabsorption of the intertubular section of the water, so that is causing a diuresis. So the alcohol suppresses the release of antidiuretic hormones. So many diuretic produce a osmotic diuresis by inhibiting a sodium reabsorption. Renal functions test can be performed to detect that uh, whether the kidney is performing normal function or it is having any abnormality. So the renal function test, depending on the anatomy of the um, uh, kidney. So the renal clearance, we have to use the blood volume, the volume of the blood plasma from which a particular waste is removed in a 1 minute. So this is the one of the renal clearance test or renal test that we are using a one chemical which passed down, which is not reabsorbed in the tubules, and uh, which is given into the blood, and this is transported through a nephrons and excreted into the urine in a 1 minute, so that that can be analyzed, that how much the clearance of that ingredients takes place, so that we may have to check out the renal function. So that can be measured by indirectly by measuring the waste concentration in the blood and urine volume. So the glomerular filtration, for measuring a glomerular filtration rate, the measuring of a glomerular filtration rate requires a substance that is not secreted or reabsorbed at all. The inulin, a polymer of a fructose, is a suitable ingredients which can be given to the patient, so that it may have to excrete, and the inulin infiltrate by the glomeruli remains in the renal tubule and absorbs in the urine, and none is reabsorbed, and the tubules does not secrete it. So for this solid, the glomerular filtration rate is equal to the renal clearance. And this, the inulin, whenever is being given to the patient, it is not reabsorbed, it is not secreted by the tubules or the body. So the inulin is a pure ingredient which has to be given into the blood, and then it has to be filtrated into the through the glomerular filtration. The clearance into the urine of a inulin volume, that is equal to the clearance waste, and this is the performance of the kidney, which is performing a filtration of the inulin, and whatsoever the rate of the inulin is observed in the urine, it is equal to the clearance of the kidney. So hemodialysis, artificially clearing the waste from the product. So mostly if there is any retention of the waste products and the kidney is failure, then mostly the dialysis machines are being used to perform the same function which is being performed by the kidneys to filter the blood. So this is the normal, the compressed air is required, the uh, fresh dialysis fluid is required, then the constant um, transporters are required. Transporter bath, that is the bath is required, which maintains the temperature of the fluid which is transported through and injected into the human, and then it has the liquid used dialysis container is required, which has to collect the used fluid of a dialysis into the container, and then by this method the blood is being purified, and the dialysis fluid has to be circulated into the blood, and then it is being reabsorbed the waste product, and then it is excreted through the fluid into the container. So this way the artificial kidney is being the artificial work of the kidney is being performed by the dialysis machine. So the dialysis through a peritoneum can be performed, and that is also a convenient and less efficient work than the dialysis by the arterial and venous pumping. So this is efficient but inconvenient to perform. So there the dialysis through a peritoneal cavity, it is very convenient and less efficient to perform. So urine storage and elimination, the ureters are muscular tubules leading from the renal pelvis to the lower bladder. So there are two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder, and then the urethra. The urinary bladder is a muscular sac on the floor of the pelvic cavity and is a highly distensible and expand the superiority. The distended bladder, the empty bladder, and the pubic bladder. The level of symphysis, the level of the extended bladder always being in the pelvic cavity, and if it is empty, then the level is achieved at the lower region, and if it is pubic symphysis is being observed in the urinary bladder. The openings of a two ureters and the urethra mark a triangular area called the trigone on the urinary bladder. So this trigone is developed in the urinary bladder when the ureters from two sides, left and right, they are connected with the urinary bladder and the urethra at the lower part. Then the triangle is developed that is known as a trigone, and this is the trigone in the female is a 3 to 4 centimeter, where the male has a 18 centimeters. So there is a greater risk of a urinary tract infection in the females, whereas the risk of the infection in the male are lesser. Conveys the urine from the urinary bladder to the outside of the body. So this urethra is conveying the uh, the urine from the urinary bladder or from the body to the outside. So the male urethra has three regions: prostatic urethra, the membranous urethra, and penile urethra. The prostatic urethra having the internal urethral sphincter, the external sphincter, and internal urethral sphincter under the involuntary control, and the external urethral sphincter is under the voluntary control. The micturition reflexes when the urinary bladder contains about 200 ml of a urine. Stretch receptors in the wall send the impulses to the spine cord, and parasympathetic signals returns the stimulate the contraction of the urinary bladder, and relaxation of the internal urethral sphincter takes place. So this way, the infants urinate, and the voiding in the urine in adults, the once the voluntarily control has developed, emptying of the urinary bladder is controlled by a predominantly by a micturition center in the uh, pons. This center receives the signals from the stress receptors and integrates this information with cortical inputs concerning the appropriateness of the urinating at the moment. It sends the back impulses to stimulate the relaxation of the external sphincters. So the urinary bladder always been empties after in the adults by the sympathetic system. So the thank you very much. This is the last slide, and you can watch this lecture on YouTube as well as Microsoft Stream. So I have given you the assignments. So go through the lectures of the digestive system, and then you have to refill the table which has a blanks, so that it may be conveyed in within the 24 hours, so that you may have to obtain the marks of a 2 already I have given to one assignment that is being submitted by the students, that they are carrying a 2 marks on it, and I have given this assignment again, which is also carrying a 2 marks. तो आप ये दो assignments करेंगे तो tomorrow I will give you a third assignments, and likewise in the coming week I will give you the 5 assignments, total 5 assignments which carries a 10 marks, and then I will give you a one of the midterm that will carries a 20 marks, and then the total 30 marks will be given to you from a theory, and 10 marks on attendance. So the 40 marks will be awarded during a study, and the remaining 60 marks will be given to you on the final exam, which will be conducted later on. तो अभी आपको जो मैंने असाइनमेंट्स दे रहा हूँ, these are the results of your exam. ये जो मार्क्स हैं ये पार्टली जो है ना that will be included in your जो आपका जो एग्ज़ाम है, लास्ट एग्ज़ाम है, उस एग्ज़ाम में ये रिज़ल्ट प्लस होगी, तो आपका टोटल मार्क्स जो है इससे बनेंगी, और फिर दिस विल बी द टोटल रिज़ल्ट ऑफ योर सेमेस्टर. तो 40 मार्क्स में ड्यूरिंग क्लासेस दूंगा, 60 मार्क्स ड्यूरिंग एग्जाम दूंगा. That will be the last exam of a theory. So you have to complete these assignments so that you may have to carry and the marks, and that will help you in the passing of this subject. अच्छा, कोई भी आपको अभी relevant कोई भी सवाल पूछना हो तो you can ask.
सर क्रिएटिनिन और क्रिएटिन में क्या फर्क है?
These are different actually compounds which are excreted through urine. ये दोनों ही अलग एक जो है ना एलिमेंट्स हैं, दोनों ही जो है ना अलग कंपाउंड्स हैं जो बाहर निकलते हैं, एक्सक्रीट करते हैं. आप इस तरह से पूछ रहे हैं ग्लूकोज और सोडियम में क्या फ़र्क है. तो these are the likewise creatine or creatinine are two elements. They are being excreted through ये different elements हैं जो आते हैं, बाहर निकलते हैं, excrete करते हैं. Chemically they are different.
मैं बताता कि जो क्रिएटिनिन है वो तो मसल वेस्ट है, लेकिन ये क्रिएटिन का पता नहीं था.
They are excreted through kidneys. ये जो ना फिल्टर होते हैं, और क्रेटिनिन और क्रिएटिन को दोनों को हम जो है ऑब्जर्व करते हैं व्हेन यू आर टेकिंग अ टेस्ट. ये दोनों के आपको रिजल्ट्स मिलते हैं, और दोनों की जो प्रेजेंस है यूरिन में वो डिफरेंट है. Okay, I'm leaving your ending this meeting, and then tomorrow will be the practical, and we will talk on the practical tomorrow. You have to submit your assignment within the 24 hours so that I may award you the marks. I will announce the results on Monday of your all these assignments.
Much.